Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights. In each episode, I chat with one bookish guest as we take some time to sample and savor the pairing recommendations from their bookish flight. We hope to give you suggestions to cultivate your TBR list and nurture your leisure time through books. In today's episode, I am chatting with Karen Nelson. Karen is the author of The Sunken Town and the co-founder of the nonprofit Writing by Writers. During her long career in nonprofits, she has protected open space, funded cancer research, trained people to complete endurance events, and helped writers bring their work into the world. When not organizing writing workshops, she can be found hiking with her dog, reading, traveling, experimenting in the kitchen, and hosting dinner parties. She writes for various publications and is at work on her next novel. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I am so glad to have you. Listeners, Karen and I met, we were trying to figure it out about a year ago, we think, at Cynthia Martin's book event here in San Diego. And so we connected, and now Karen has a book out in the world. And so we are here to chat with you today.
Yes, it's so fun. And Cindy was on your podcast, I think one of your early ones. So that's
Yes.
wonderful as well.
Yeah, I should have looked up the episode number, but I did talk about her recently because I had episode 100, and she is still one of my most memorable interviews that I've had. So I had a friend interview me, and so it was like, what episodes have stood out? And her story just of being a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids and having left her career and then going back into it, and it just really resonated with me, and I still think about it. So
yeah, she's my closest writing friend. So
I love it. Well, for listeners that don't know you yet, I feel like we are so much more than these bios. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. So, you're always so used to being defined by what you do.
Yes.
So I would say, I love to be outside. That's something about me. And I'm definitely a big reader. I love to read as escapism. And so I find that if I can't be outside and escaping that way, then I'm doing it through books and imagining different worlds and enjoying it. And I just, yes, I love to travel. I love to cook, as I said in the little bio there. I do a monthly dinner party where I have to cook recipes I've never made before.
Oh,
And people have to be honest because it's never chef air. It's either a good recipe or a bad recipe. And so that's always fun. I've been doing that for years. So all sorts of
wonderful.
other little things kind of on the side. And then my primary job is I run a nonprofit that is a literary nonprofit that we put on writing workshops for people. And so that keeps me very busy too.
Yeah. So I know we have quite a few authors in the audience. Can you tell us about, is this the Writing by Writers group that you run?
Yes. So
Okay.
it's Writing by Writers. I founded it with my partner, Pam Houston, we're almost at 13 years now.
Wow.
And I know it's been a long time. We didn't, who knew it was going to be going this long when we started it? But we put on different types of writing workshops. Some are online, some are in person. And what we really try to do is fill in the gap where other workshops aren't. So we do a full manuscript workshop for people who've written a complete manuscript. We do a 2-year book building project that helps people write a full manuscript. We do some generative classes. We do things called writing adventures. We just got back from Stowe, Vermont for a week of cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and riding in the horse sleigh, and it was so
Wow.
much fun. And while somewhere in there, finding the way to write
Yeah.
too. So it's really a really fun thing to do, and Pam and I have been doing it for years at this point. So
Yeah. Well, if listeners are like, oh, I would love to find out more, where can they find more information?
we have a website. It's called Writing X Writers, like 4x4,
Okay.
writingxwriters.org. But if you
Okay.
just type Writing by Writers in, it'll come up too.
Okay.
But yeah, check it out. We've got some great classes going on right now that are going to be online if people can't travel. And then we have some more in-depth ones if they can. So
Perfect. Well, I will be sure to include links in the show notes as well. So
thank you.
you have your novel out now, The Sunken Town.
I
Can you
do.
tell us about it?
Yes. So The Sunken Town is about a 30-year-old woman named Lindsay who never gave much thought to the fact that she was adopted. until she unexpectedly inherits her birth mother's home and dog in Maine. And this sends her on a journey that she never planned to take. And along the way, she discovers all the lengths to which people were willing to go to protect her. And so it's written from two points of view. It's written from Lindsay's point of view, but we also get the point of view of her birth mother, Claire. So that is set back in 1993, and it's the year of her getting pregnant and giving up Lindsay. And then we
Okay.
pick up Lindsay's story. And it's sort of interesting because I originally had written a whole 300-page novel just about Lindsay. And I put that in the drawer and thought, well, that was great. Taught myself how to write a novel. Don't ever need to see it again. And then I wrote a next novel, and then I was starting to write a third novel, which actually ties into my book flight that I brought today. And
Okay.
I wanted to write something in sort of dark academia, and so I started writing, and I quickly realized that I was writing the story of her birth mother, and also that I'm not that dark. And so I wrote the 100 pages on that. I took that original book out of the drawer and I put the birth mother story up against the story of Lindsay. And then when I'd written Lindsay, I didn't have I didn't have a father, I didn't have circumstances, I didn't have anything. And so
Sure.
now suddenly I had all that. So then I kept about 100 pages and rewrote another 100 at the end. So it ended up being a whole big combination book from the two points of view that it came to the world that way. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think I've had anybody come on the show and say that they kind of like started with one and then they came back in eight or I know they can change from what
You're
you think
right.
is your first rough draft, right? But I've
Right.
never had that, and so that's amazing. What?
Yeah, it wasn't going to come out of the drawer. And then it started, it said, you know,
Just kept poking at you,
it
right? Like
did.
I'm
And then it
still
became
here.
kind of a challenge. I'm like, okay, can I put these two together and make it work? And, and I ended up writing, I don't think I could have written the book I wrote at the time I started the original
Sure.
one. I had to have gained some age and experience and some perspective. And so I was really happy to put them together and have it work out. So
Yeah, and get it back out of the
to
drawer.
get it back out. Yeah.
Because I imagine that writing a 300-page novel in itself, I mean, it's not like you spent a weekend doing that. I mean,
No,
you spent a
no.
lot of time with that.
I did spend a lot of time. Although, I would work on it and then I'd put it away and then I'd work on it and put it away and write something else. And so it wasn't just a constant, I'm not a good sit down every day and work on my
Sure.
manuscript. I would go through more kind of fits and starts. But I've sort of learned, I think that part of the being away in the drawer is now my process because I was able to see it with fresh eyes that I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to before. But and now that I'm getting older, the good news is I don't think it has to go in the drawer for that long because I can't remember what I ate for lunch. So
Why
I'm
did I
hoping
come in the kitchen
that
again?
I'll be like, oh, this is all new to me. Did I really write this? How long ago did this happen?
Yeah, I remember being back in school because I'm not a writer today per se,
Uh-huh.
but I would have to, I'm a procrastinator at heart, so this was hard for me to do. But I would have to write, whenever we would have an assigned writing, writing assignment, I'd have to
Yeah.
do it at the beginning of it because I could never edit
Ah,
myself because I would just like skim over, right? It would be
yeah.
like, well, what I thought I had typed. And we didn't have all these fancy things to help us these days. It was probably a really good way to learn. But I would have to like write it very quickly at the beginning and then I would have to like set it away for a couple days to be able to come back to it, to then be able to edit and like actually see my mistakes instead of my brain just like correcting it and think it was okay.
Exactly. I'm deadline driven. So I was the person that was like, when's the deadline? I'm going to write it at the last minute, and that pressure gets me to do it.
Oh yeah, I work very well like that, but it was like I knew like when I needed to do a writing assignment, I just had to set myself up
Yeah.
this way. So, well, tell us, because I know this again, this didn't happen overnight. So
Yeah.
when did you start the original story?
I started the original story. I mean, it would have been back in like 2002,
Wow.
2003.
Okay.
Um, and then I wrote on it for a while and then I said I put in the drawer. I pulled it out. I did look this up in 2016. And so
Okay.
that's when I started the next version with the story of Claire. And after about 2 years, that went back in the drawer. And really, this got pulled out of the drawer at the beginning of the pandemic. One of my friends who I used to be in a writing group with called me and said, "Look, I have no life, no friends, no job. I need to write a book. Can we get the band back together?" And so I said, "Sure." I was in contact with everyone. So I pulled them all back together and we started meeting online. And at that point, I started something new. And I thought, why are we starting something new when you have two books that are so close? And so I really just dug in and decided, now is the time to finish this and get it out the door. And so I did that, and then it took me about a year from when I started sending it out to it being published and through the whole process. So
Wow. Wow. I always admire the perseverance and how you all as writers can just stick with a project. Because even my mind's like, I don't know that I could do that.
No, it's hard. It's definitely hard. But the thought of starting something whole new, I was like, oh God, I'm such a
Yeah.
better rewriter than I am writer. And the problem with that is, of course, you have to write in order to rewrite.
You have to get it there to rewrite.
So I was really happy to spend a lot of time rewriting instead of having to like stare at that blank cursor and write something new. So.
Yeah. Well, it's great for you to know about yourself too, right? Like I feel confident in the rewriting department, so you had that
Yeah.
going in. What else did you learn about yourself through the writing process?
Ooh, I know I am not someone who lets it get messy enough on the page. Like that is my biggest
Okay.
challenge. I'm a problem solver, so I'm always solving my characters' problems
Yeah.
before. And I don't like them to like fail or get really, helpless. And so I have to consciously think, okay, well, here's what I would do, but I'm not my character, and that will solve the book in 3 sentences. So let's find something that I can work with and find realistic, but that is going to allow, like, what is the worst case scenario here? What is the messiest? What is, not, I don't like books where it's all based off a misunderstanding. Like that's
Sure.
silly. Two people just talk to each other, be fine. But I do like when people are withholding information and keeping secrets. And so what information is being withheld? Who knows what? How is that going to come out? And just allowing it to get messy on the page. And often, that's where my early readers come in. They think, well, you almost, almost could be worse here. And I'm like, oh, do I really have to make it worse? But I always do. So that's what I've learned along the way.
Do you get like an emotional attachment to the characters you're writing, do you think?
I don't,
Okay.
they definitely, and all my characters, of course, have aspects of me in them because I'm the one writing them. But
Sure.
I do find that they talk to each other, without me, and I don't really necessarily get emotionally attached to them, or I don't think, well, I wouldn't do that, so they shouldn't do that.
Sure.
But I do I do want them to be smart, make smart choices, and make logical choices. So that's where I kind of get attached to them being
Yeah.
wise in the world.
Yeah, because that's what I would think, right? It's almost like I think of your books as a baby, right? It's
Right.
like you're putting this out into the world. You spend so much time with it, nurturing it, loving it, putting into it. And I just was wondering if you get that way with your characters because you're like, I don't want them to fail. So if that works that way as well.
Yeah.
Well, what is your wish for the reader if they pick up The Sunken Town? What do you hope they take away from it?
Ooh, it's for me, it was a lot. I'm adopted like the main character, and there's two things that made me write this book. One is that I am adopted. I'm not interested in finding out about my birth parents.
Sure.
And my friends have always found this to be a little strange about me. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? And I think part of it is being an only child, and that is so much my identity that I've said, I'm not opposed to knowing about birth parents, but I don't want to find siblings or a whole family and have to redefine who I am from that. So there was that. And then right out of college, my boyfriend was asked to move into a home of a woman who had gone out for milk or something and been killed in a car accident. And his boss was the executor of the estate. So he was just taking care of this house where this woman had left and planned to come back, but didn't, and it came with a dog. And so I would go up and visit him on the weekends, and I just remember walking through that door, and the house just told so much about who this person was. And I didn't necessarily, like, she was more of a hoarder and things like that. I didn't necessarily use what her house was, but I used that feeling and put it together with the idea of being adopted. Like, well, what if this
Yeah.
was my birth mother? Like, what is this house telling me about who this person is? So, so I ended up doing a lot of kind of exploration on that. So for me, I feel like I want readers to think about, what is your nature? What is your nurture? What secrets do we keep? What lies are we telling ourselves, or not even lies, but what are we telling ourselves is okay, just because that's going to help us get through the world, when maybe if we look a little deeper under the
Yeah.
surface, we'll see some things. And I also think, I'm in my mid 50s, the age I am now. I feel like I'm watching my friends with their children, like, the relationship is changing. The children, like, they only see their mom as a mom, and that, not as someone who has a life. And as they start to get older, they're starting to see their parents as people who are flawed and have lives and are human and are trying to do the best they can. And so for me, it was kind of that journey also of the character, from going from her childhood relationship to her parents to more of an adult relationship and acceptance and seeing their flaws. And so to have the readers sort of think through that as well. And then there's also some, it's not mystical, but I'm not giving anything away. Like, so they go
Okay.
to Machu Picchu, and Machu Picchu is known as like an energy spot. And so she does a little, there's some woo-woo stuff that whether or not my character believes it, not sure she believes in the woo-woo or not
Sure.
believes in the woo-woo. But I actually had a very interesting discussion with my book group who read my book about, do you think there are places in the world that you feel extra things, and are there people who feel things more than others? And so I think that was sort of an interesting conversation that came out of it, and how much you let that influence your own world too. So all
Yeah.
sorts of little things that people can
I know. And I'm
take
loving
away.
what you're saying, because I think back to your point, right? When we said we started with the bio question, it was like, well, who do we say that we are if it's not like
Right.
just our job, right? And then you're like at the next token of, well, she's now is in this house and she's learning so much about the person. And it's just this great question of, we are so much more than this elevator pitch that we give to people. And I
Right.
feel like Cynthia and I probably talked about it in this episode as well, because it was when I went to being a stay-at-home mom and I lost my identity as a physical therapist. Is I really had like 5 years of this journey of, well, who do I say that I am?
Right.
But we could take a look at just the simple things around us, right? In our day, in our home, in our life, and we could just, maybe observe ourselves a little bit better to be that much more than just this identity that we had from, whatever it is, right? Our status, our job, or
Absolutely. And where that comes from, it does it come from who you are? Does it come from how you were raised? Is it a combination? Is it your genes? Is it, do you identify with what your parents have taught you? Do you not? And so really exploring that has been interesting for me too. And I don't have answers because I don't know my birth parents, but it was
yeah,
it was a very interesting thing to go in. And I think what I came out of the book with is it's not one or the other. You're
yeah.
influenced by all sorts of things. And as you said, if you can just look around your own house, it just tells you so much about who you are as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the show too, right? Is the book flight. And I think we can learn a lot about
Yes,
people by the three books that they bring in their book flight, right? Like I think it does tell
absolutely.
you about a person and books that you love. And I think books hit us in the time when we just need that. I truly believe they kind of like this book serendipity. They land in our lap when we most need them. And those are the books people are bringing a lot of times, is these books that have resonated with them or stuck with them long after they've read them.
Absolutely. And there are books I read as a kid that, like, I mean, I still remember being traumatized by Where the Red Fern Grows.
Yep.
Like, traumatized.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think things just hit you. So, I mean, books for me, I hit you so hard, and I love them. I love reading. I love everything about it. So,
Yeah. Well, when you were a kid, this is a
yeah.
great point here and a great transition. Did you write? Were you a writer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have always written. I have a little book on my bookshelf that was called The Popcorn Popper That Wouldn't Stop Popping. And so, I mean, I always read, but writing is how I've always expressed myself, and it's how I've always figured things out. And so, I mean, I was reading from a very early age, and I was being read to. I was reading myself, and then I was writing. And I'd write stories about my stuffed animals. I would write stories about the things around me. And my mother, always remembers that that's what I was doing. I had my little best friend was a great artist, and so she would illustrate, and
I
I would
love it.
story, and days, months could go by on these stories that we were doing. So it's always been a part of my world, and I'm fortunate that my parents really encouraged it in me. They were
Yeah.
both big readers, and they set by example, but it was also I never stopped. Like I never stopped reading. I always my whole like all through school, all through everything. Even now, I'm a huge reader, and I'm reading. I'm always reading one book and I'm listening to another one, so I
Okay.
get a good amount in a
Yeah, I
year.
was going to ask you how in like your busyness, because I imagine too, right, if you're writing that day, that
Yeah.
maybe it's hard to then go pick up a book, but maybe it helps you switch gears a little bit to
Well,
go
no,
do
it's true.
that.
I would say that writing and reading occupy a lot of the same mental space for me. But there's, I'm not an auditory learner. And so for me, listening to the books are not as it's harder for me. But what I found is I walk my dog every day, and
Sure.
that's a great time for me to listen to books. But they have to be books that are more plot driven. So I do listen to more sort of mysteries or lighter books
Yeah.
that it's not about the language or the structure or seeing it on the page. So it's just more fun, more entertainment. Whereas the books I'm reading, often if it's a language book, like I'm like, nope, can't listen to this one. I need to see the words. If it's just so beautiful, if it's structurally or formally interesting, I have to see it on the page. And so that kind of helps me divide up. So the more literary books I'm reading, and then the more, plot driven books I'm
Yeah.
listening. But even when I'm writing the most, I mean, I have to have one book. Like I can't not have
Yeah.
a book going ever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a curse.
Like you said, you got to be able to escape to something. So you
I
got to
do,
have
I
that going.
do.
Well, you have been so gracious to bring a book flight with you as well. Can you tell
Yes.
us how you chose these books?
Well, I would call my book flight suspenseful literary novels set in academia.
Love
And
it.
it's these are the books that I really wish I had written, and I tried a little bit to write, and
Yeah.
I just like I said earlier, I am not dark enough, but I think that's why I love reading about them.
Yeah.
So
Someone else takes you there, right? Someone else
yes,
takes you
yes.
to
Yeah,
the
they
dark.
let it get messy in the way that like my poor little brain is like, no, no, can't do that. So the first book I bought, I would call it a modern classic. I'm showing it to you, but I know
Yep.
that everyone can't see that. It's Donna Tartt's The Secret History. And this, it's, I mean, at the time it came out, it was the talk that everyone was talking about it. And I think it really struck me. It's very captivating. It's very suspenseful. It delves really into the dark side of academia and the complexities of like the human nature, which a lot of books these days do, but I feel like this was one of the first ones.
Yeah.
Um, it's set in elite New England college. It's narrated by a Californian, which is what I am, and which is what my character is, who also goes to an elite college in the East Coast. And he's the Richard is the character, and he's not poor, but he's not from a real wealthy family. And he falls into this group of classic students who are under the influence of this very charismatic professor. And there's this whole web of secrets that he finds out, and ultimately this group, I don't again think I'm giving anything away, commits a murder. And so it's just, her prose is just incredibly rich. And she's got this amazing character development that really, it just draws you as a reader into these lives of these very flawed but interesting characters. And that's what kind of makes their descent into darkness even more compelling. So I would say, I mean, she nails it on every level, but this one is truly about character development. And I have read this book more than once. And I tried to listen to it and I was like, nope, I have to see it on the page again, even though I've
Yeah.
already read it.
Well,
Um,
I know I read this book back
Probably.
probably like 2015, 2016. I think I started with The Goldfinch and then I read
Oh,
this
then you went
one.
back. Yeah.
And I think I read it as an audiobook and I'm like, I think I need to go back and read this one on the page. And I don't know if this happens to you, but also books kind of just blur together. It's like I know I read the title, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you a character's name or something about it. So I'm like, I need to go revisit this book, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the Goldfinch was wonderful too. So that's another great one by her.
Yeah, and she just
Um,
does such a good job with the
uh,
characters. I mean, she spends a lot of time with them. I
yeah,
mean,
she
they're
does.
thicker books for sure.
Definitely. And I think I looked, this one I think came out in 1992. So it's been
Oh,
around,
wow.
but
Okay,
modern classic. So think of it that way.
absolutely. Okay, so that was The Secret History by
That
Donna
was a
Tartt.
secret history. Yes.
Yep.
The next one is The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman. And this one, there's going to be some similar themes here, and I think that's why I love them. This is set, it's the main character's named Jane. 20
Okay.
years ago, she was at a girls' school, and there was a terrible tragedy where three students die of suicide. And that was sort of, and then she's come back now to teach Latin, so more dead languages, and kind of to like re-find herself. I think she's gone through a divorce. I can't remember exactly, but she's coming back to kind of find herself again. And pages of her missing journal that she had written 20 years ago during that tragic time start reappearing and like revealing some of these long buried secrets. And at the same time, in the current timeline, girls are starting to be troubled again and they're starting to die. And so, like, piece by piece, all of it kind of comes together from what happened 20 years ago to what's happening now. And and I think what I loved about this book most is it's deeply atmospheric. Like I think I've probably reread it, but I haven't reread it in 15 years. And
Okay.
I just, there was the ice skating and it was winter and you can feel so much the setting of it. And that is what sort of made it stand out. And I've read other books by her and they're all sort of literary, thrillers. But this one, I think actually was her debut novel and it just really, it nailed it on every level. And so I would say deeply atmospheric on that one.
Okay. I haven't heard of this one, but it sounds super
Yeah.
interesting. So that was The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman. And then what's the last book you brought today?
My last one, I love the title because it's crazy. It's Special Topics and Calamity Physics. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but it's Marisha Pessel.
Okay.
Um, this is one of my favorite books, and I have reread it. And in fact, when I went to write my book, I took this one off the shelf and looked at how she revealed information because she does a
Oh. Okay.
fantastic job. But okay, so basically it's very dark, it's very funny. It's a coming of age novel, and it's got a very like richly plotted suspense tale. But the most fun thing is the voice. So the heroine is named Blue Van Meer, and she is a senior in this little private elite high school. She's very clever, she's very deadpan, and she's got this huge like lexicon of political and literary and philosophical and scientific knowledge. Plus, she's this huge movie buff. So she thinks there's all these little factoids that go into her reasoning. And so the basic plot is she's moved around from academic outpost to like academic outpost with her dad, who is a
Okay.
piece of work in himself. And she's now in her final year of high school, and it's this elite school. And again, she falls in with a group of charismatic people, and there is a captivating teacher, similar to the Secret History. And then people die, but the best thing about the special topics is just the voice of this character. So the way that she is left to make sense of everything is just fantastic. Like her voice, and I wish I had been able to write a book like this that was just so strong and so well done. And like I said, the way that she releases the information to you, like you find out on the first page that this teacher's dead, like that, and then
Yeah.
you go through the book and figure it out. And the dad's like, everyone's keeping secrets. And the dad himself is like such a wonderful piece of work. It's so worth it. So yeah, Special
Okay.
Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessl.
Okay.
And she's written
Yeah.
other books too, but this is, I think, she's written some YA books, but this is an adult book.
Okay.
So
Well, you also mentioned that you brought one more because you talk
I
about
did.
books so well. I'm very intrigued. Can you tell us, and we're going to add a little dessert pairing today. Can you tell
A
us
little
what's the
dessert
last
pairing.
book you brought?
Well, I felt like I needed to bring something that had been come out in this decade that was about the same area. So that would
Mhm.
be Rebecca Mackay's I Have Some Questions for You.
Yes.
Rebecca, if you don't know, wrote The Great Believers, which was one of my all-time favorite books. And Rebecca is a wonderful teacher and teaches
Yeah.
for us in our program. So I can tell you that as well.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. Okay.
I have some questions for you is the same type of book. It's very literary, but it is about a woman that goes back. Her roommate was died when she was back in school, and now she's been invited back to be a professor there. And they had arrested someone at the time for her death. But you go and you find, did they really arrest the right person? The memory of going back, who's to blame? We get a little, I think, of the Me Too movement, if I remember right. It's been a little bit since I've read this one.
Okay.
But it is another wonderful contemporary take on this suspenseful yet literary novel set in academia, and
Love
well
it.
worth the read if you have some chance to do that too. So that's your quick little dessert pairing there.
Awesome. So I have some questions for you by Rebecca Mackay. Thank you so much for bringing those.
You're
How I
welcome.
love to end our show here is with our bonus pairings, and they're just a speed round of questions you can answer really quick. Are you a rereader?
I would like to be more of a rereader than I am, and I've got a huge library of books, which I tell myself I'm going to reread, but not so much. It's hard enough for me to read all the books I want to read, so
Yeah.
I will reread for writing's sake, but I don't necessarily reread just for pleasure.
Okay. That makes sense. What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Ooh, this is going to be slightly different than the way this question is intended, but my business partner, Pam Houston, I read her book, Cowboys Are My Weakness. I was
Okay.
working in Boston. I was on the T going to work. I had no book, and I picked up a Glamour magazine, which is not something that I would normally read. And I flipped to the section that said, book recommendations. And the book recommendation was for Cowboys Are My Weakness. So I got off the T, bought the book, so I'd have something to read on the way home, and ended up falling in love with it. And so then she was teaching at the Aspen Writers Workshop. And I thought, well, why can't I take a class? So I
Yeah.
applied and I got into her class, and we met there. And she became my student, or not my student, my teacher at that point. I became her student. And then I was in her private writing group for years. And then
Wow.
eventually we decided to start our business together. So
I love that. I could see where
all
that
because of a Glamour
totally.
magazine I picked up on the T. So that is the book that probably changed my actual life in a way that wasn't exactly how you intended the question,
Yeah, but
but
no, but in a remarkable way. So that's
yes.
absolutely. Where is your favorite place to read?
Ooh, I have a big cushy chair that I love to sit in, and my dog is always sitting with me.
Yeah.
So the two of us together.
Love it.
Although I do love, I have to say, I'm always aware of where I am when I read books. So like the books that I read sitting on the beach or something, I'm like I can picture where I was. So that's fun to do too. So
That's fun because I feel like a lot of us can do that with music, right? Like it
yes,
can take you back to that time period, but I love the books that can
yeah,
do
I can
that
do it
too.
with the book.
Yeah. Last question here. What are you reading next?
Oh, I haven't started it yet, but it's sitting right next to me here. It is Colored Television by Danzy Senna.
Okay.
Um, it's been highly recommended to me. It says it's a brilliant dark comedy about love and ambition, failure and reinvention, and the racial identity industrial complex from the best-selling author of Caucasia. So
Oh, awesome. Well, I hope it's a great one for you.
yeah, so I'm super excited about it.
The cover is fantastic.
Many people have recommended it to me, and I just picked it up. So I look
Wonderful.
forward to starting that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me tonight. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Karen Nelson, including her book flight of suspenseful literary novels set in academia. You can see all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.